Dating across cultures sounds adventurous, almost like stepping into a romantic movie where love conquers all. But what happens when reality replaces fantasy? When an American woman falls for a Chinese man, the story often begins with charm and curiosity, but soon spirals into tension and confusion. Should American women really date Chinese men? That's the question we're tackling today. Stay tuned, because what looks exciting at first sight might turn into one of the toughest emotional journeys you could ever face. Before we dive in, make sure to subscribe to the channel, hit that like button, and leave a comment sharing your own thoughts or experiences. Have you ever dated someone from a completely different culture? Was it thrilling, or did it leave you exhausted? Share it below, and let's get into this. For many American women, dating a Chinese man seems refreshing. He's attentive, polite, disciplined, and often projects a strong sense of responsibility. Compared to the casual dating culture in the US, where everything feels temporary, he can seem serious, intentional, even honorable. In the beginning, that intensity feels like security. Finally, someone who doesn't treat relationships like disposable games. But here's the twist. What feels like devotion at first often transforms into pressure later on. His seriousness isn't just about love, it's about obligation, family duty, and tradition. And soon enough, the American woman realizes that she's not only in a relationship with him, but also with his entire family. To really understand these cultural clashes, let's follow a fictional couple, Emily and Wei. Emily is from Chicago, outspoken, independent, and proud of her free-spirited lifestyle. She studied abroad once in Europe and fell in love with different cultures, always telling her friends, "I'd never settle for someone boring." Wei, on the other hand, is from Beijing. He moved to the US for his master's degree and works in tech. He's ambitious, disciplined, and deeply connected to his family back home. His parents call him almost daily, and even though he lives thousands of miles away, their opinions still guide many of his choices. When Emily and Wei first met at a university event, sparks flew immediately. She was fascinated by his calm energy, his manners, and his sense of direction. He admired her confidence, her laughter, and the way she carried herself without fear. To Emily, dating Wei felt like entering a new world, exotic, passionate, and exciting. To Wei, being with Emily was thrilling too. But he always carried the silent expectation that someday, she would understand and respect his traditions. At first, everything was magical. They went out to new restaurants, laughed about language mix-ups, and introduced each other to music and movies from their cultures. Emily loved hearing Wei's stories about Chinese festivals and family rituals. Wei was enchanted by Emily's boldness and her openness to express affection in public. It felt like the perfect East meets West love story, but slowly, the cracks started to appear. One evening, Wei video called his parents while Emily was at his apartment. He introduced her to them, excited but nervous. Emily, smiling and casual, waved at the screen, saying, "Hi, nice to meet you." She thought it was just a sweet family moment. But after the call, Wei seemed uneasy. When Emily asked why, he hesitated and finally explained, "My parents think you are nice, but they want to know about your family, your job, and if you'd consider moving to China one day." Emily froze. Moving to China? I just met them. Why would that even come up? For Wei's parents, relationships are not just private affairs, they are future plans, legacies, and commitments. They weren't just curious. They were already evaluating Emily as a potential wife. Emily, used to American independence, felt cornered. In her world, you date because you want to explore, to see where things go, not because you're signing up for a lifelong contract. On the third video call, what seemed like cultural curiosity to Emily was, in Wei's world, a serious test. And that test never ends. Every holiday, every visit, every call from home carried subtle judgments and silent expectations. At first, Wei loved that Emily was independent. He admired her career focus and her ability to speak her mind. But soon, cultural expectations crept in. When they discussed the future, Wei casually mentioned, "When we have kids, of course, you'll take care of them. That's important." Emily blinked. "What do you mean, of course? We'll both work. We'll both share responsibilities." Wei shook his head gently, "But raising children is the mother's role. My mom left her job to raise me. It's normal." For Emily, this was a red flag. In her world, giving up her career for someone else's vision wasn't just outdated, it was unthinkable. For Wei, it was the most natural expectation, something he never questioned. Suddenly, what Emily thought was a modern relationship turned into a negotiation about roles she had no intention of accepting. And every time she pushed back, Wei seemed shocked, almost offended, as if she was rejecting not only him but also the traditions of his entire culture. The fights between Emily and Wei weren't loud at first, they were silent. When Emily was upset, she wanted to talk about it immediately, to lay everything on the table, but Wei avoided confrontation. He would stay quiet, hoping the problem would dissolve on its own. To Emily, silence felt like punishment. To Wei, silence was a form of harmony, a way to avoid unnecessary drama. This cultural gap grew bigger over time. Emily began to feel like she was talking to a wall, begging for emotional honesty, while Wei felt drained by what he saw as endless arguments. One night, after Emily pressed him to share his feelings, Wei finally burst out. "In my culture, we don't talk about every little problem. We endure. Why do you always need to fight?" To Emily, that wasn't endurance, it was avoidance. And for the first time, she realized how deeply different their definitions of love and communication were. This was only the beginning. What started as fascination and romance had already begun shifting into pressure and confusion. Emily loved Wei deeply, but every new day felt like walking into a maze of traditions, obligations, and silent rules that she could never fully understand. The relationship was no longer just about two people, it was about two worlds colliding, and the cracks were only getting wider. Emily kept telling herself that love was supposed to be stronger than cultural differences, that if two people cared enough, they could make anything work. But as the weeks went on, the little misunderstandings grew heavier. What once felt like charming quirks now felt like insurmountable obstacles. At first, she had laughed when Wei hesitated to show affection in public, but now it made her feel invisible. She wanted him to hold her hand, kiss her cheek, tell her he loved her in front of others. For him, these demands were uncomfortable and unnecessary. He believed that love was proven in actions, in sacrifices, in loyalty, not in constant words or displays. To Emily, his quietness began to feel like rejection. To Wei, her constant need for open affirmation felt exhausting and childish. Their differences extended into their careers as well. Emily was ambitious, climbing the ladder in her company and dreaming of one day running her own business. She celebrated her independence, and for her, financial freedom was not just a goal, it was an identity. Wei, though also hardworking and ambitious, carried a very different expectation. He believed a man should provide, and a woman, once married, should put family before career. One night, after Emily excitedly told him about a promotion, Wei smiled but added, "That's great, but when we have children, I don't want you working all the time. A mother's place is with her kids." Emily's joy evaporated instantly. She felt unseen, as if her dreams and efforts were invisible to him, reduced to a single role she never agreed to. To Wei, he was being realistic and traditional. To Emily, he was asking her to erase herself. Even in their social lives, the gaps widened. Emily was used to having male friends, grabbing coffee or lunch with colleagues, laughing late into the night with a mixed group of friends. Wei, however, was uncomfortable with this. To him, close friendships with men outside of a relationship were inappropriate. He didn't understand why she needed those connections, and in his silence, Emily felt judged. Every time she mentioned going out with friends, she saw the flicker of disapproval in his eyes. Soon, she stopped telling him, just to avoid the tension. But the secrecy only deepened the distance between them. Money, too, became a battlefield. Emily believed in splitting bills, in equal financial responsibility, in a partnership where no one depended entirely on the other. Wei, raised in a culture where men were expected to provide, felt insulted by her insistence. To him, if she wanted to pay her share, it meant she didn't trust him or didn't value his role. To Emily, if he insisted on paying for everything, it felt like control. Each of them thought they were showing love and respect, but each interpreted the other's actions as a rejection of values. The cycle became predictable. Fascination, conflict, reconciliation. Emily would confront him, they would fight, then they would reconcile with promises to understand each other better. But within days, another clash would erupt. Each reconciliation was shorter than the last, each argument louder, each silence colder. Emily began to feel tired, as though she was carrying the weight of two worlds. Wei, too, grew weary, unable to understand why love was not enough for her. One night, after yet another argument about family expectations, Emily finally broke down. "I feel like I'm not dating you anymore," she cried. "I'm dating your parents, your culture, your entire history. Where am I in this?" Wei, equally frustrated, replied, "And I feel like you don't accept me. You want me to be American, but I am not. I cannot stop being Chinese." In that moment, they both realized the truth. They were asking each other to change. Something that could never be changed. The love they had was real. But so were the definitions of love they carried. For Emily, love was freedom, independence, and open expression. For Wei, love was duty, sacrifice, and silent devotion. Neither was wrong, but they were fundamentally different. And no matter how much they tried to bridge the gap, the foundation of their relationship was built on contradictions. Some couples manage to overcome these divides, creating a balance between two worlds. They compromise, they bend, they learn to live with discomfort. But for most, like Emily and Wei, the burden is too heavy. Cultural clashes do not disappear with passion. They grow sharper with time. The problem isn't whether love exists, it's whether two people can survive with completely different definitions of what love should be. So here's the question. Would you survive dating someone from a culture so different from yours? Could you sacrifice your independence, your traditions, your identity, in the name of love? Or would the weight of expectations eventually crush the romance? Let us know in the comments. Don't forget to like this video, subscribe to the channel, and share it with someone who needs to hear this. Because when cultures collide, love is never simple, it's survival.